please can you welcome onto the stage the CEO and founder of Epic Games, Tim Sweeney. Hey Tim, nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Hey, take a seat. 21 years, I think, since the first Unreal Engine.
Yeah.
Did you foresee that it would end up like this, Tim, or are you just happy enough to get the first one out there?
No, it was a long process of realizing what was going to be possible. I hadn't even envisioned that 3D graphics would be practical on any device that any normal person owned until John Carmack released Wolfenstein 3D and then Doom. At that point, I just felt we should get out of games because it's hopeless. I'll never compete with this. But over time, I got into it and figured out how to make that stuff work. But computers now are 10 million times faster than when I started programming. I think it was around 1981. And there's no other field in the history of humankind where our technology has gotten 10 million times better in that time period. So now we've gone from just barely being able to render what looks like a 3D scene at 320 by 200 resolution in the Unreal 1 days, all the way up to nearly photorealistic digital humans, and it's completely unexpected.
Mm. What's the challenge then of making tools in this new environment, to keep audiences entertained and to keep them coming back to consuming this sort of content?
Well, there are really two problems. First of all, producing photorealistic pixels requires just simulating everything that light and surfaces do in the real world. And the nuances of that are incredibly detailed, especially when you get to something like a human where we have millions of years of evolution causing us to expect certain things from a human face or eyes or hair. And it's just taken an enormous amount of work to support that. But the other major area for developers is productivity. Even though the technology we build might be capable of producing photorealistic content, the cost of producing it is a huge limiting factor for us. Mm. It's why there are 1 million indie games in the industry, but only a few games of the level of Red Dead Redemption or GTA.
And do you think, is photorealism the mecca then for people like yourself? Is that what you're trying to strive towards?
Well, photorealism is one measure, but I think what we really want to do is enable artists to achieve their vision productively, whatever style they want. From something stylized in the kind of Pixar style like Fortnite to something photoreal to anything in between. I think we want artists to be unimpeded in realizing the vision they have for their look.
When you consider the work that's been done on the Unreal Engine, what's the thing you're most proud of then, in terms of that journey that's happened over the last 21 years?
I think one of the trends, we've been usually pretty late to recognize the trends that are shaping the industry. They usually happen without much recognition in advance, but the most incredible thing has been in the adoption of Unreal outside of the game industry without our even pushing it. We read a survey in an architecture magazine that cited that Unreal had 30% market share for architectural visualization, and we had no idea. Yeah. But it was because people who were architects needed a real-time tool to visualize their worlds, and Unreal was a free download, and they just found that it could do everything they needed. So we've been really astonished to find that the tools that we've been building to help game developers build games have reached a level where suddenly they're the most attractive solution for everybody who wants to do real-time computer graphics.
Mm. Which also, for the film and television industry as well, to an extent.
Yeah, that's right. Even 10 years ago, there was a little bit of game engine use when they'd be pre-visualizing a movie and kind of storyboarding it out. They do some rough cuts in engines, including Unreal. But most recently, we've seen the adoption of Unreal for real-time production of final pixels and real-time virtual production on a movie set, where you can have 100 different devices, and anybody can look through any camera in the scene and see a real-time composition of the humans in the scene with the green screen and the CG that has been pre-built for it. And it gets us back to this magical time of film production when a director could actually look through their camera and see everything and make really great calls about shots based on the appearance of the thing. And in the age of CG, for a long time that was lost, and now it's being brought back. So I think we're going to see game engines completely revolutionize film and television production and ultimately help the creatives produce better results. Yeah. Because it is real time and because they can see exactly what the final scene will look like when they're looking through their camera.
When I interviewed you about 4 years ago at Gamescom in a pokey room in the corner with really bad air conditioning. And you said to me then that the role of indie games and their influence on major AAA titles was about to sort of amplify even more than they had been in the past. And you've sort of been proven right in that in the last few years with sort of the explosion of influences of games like Rocket League and titles like Fortnite and what have you. Is that something that you look on with fond memories, or is that something that you think would have happened anyway, regardless of Unreal?
No, I think that's one of the great things about both Unreal and Unity is they've enabled this democratization of game engines so that anybody who has a great idea can realize it without building a huge set of technologies themselves. It enables the creatives to express their vision. And it's kind of freed the game business away from the tyranny of having huge products and budgets and production schedules, because now a small team can go in and produce a smaller game that just so thoroughly explores one unique idea that they can invent new genres. Like the game PUBG arose from a very small team, 30 or 40 people working for a year, using mainly assets from the Unreal Engine marketplace to put together a game experience, and it became one of the most successful games of all time. I think that proves that indies are going to reshape the industry. With games like Rocket League also. These are not AAA scale productions, but they proved that a lot of major genres of games are yet to be invented still.
Yeah, and talking of major genres of games, of course, Fortnite is a title that's gone and changed the industry in the last few years. When you hear that or see the impact that Fortnite is having on the industry, how does that make you feel?
It's really amazing. Epic set out with a lot of big goals in their history, but like making dancing cool again among kids is not one of them. And
I was going to ask you to floss, Tim, but maybe not.
No, but it's really amazing to see a whole new generation. Epic started out as like a bunch of young, 20-year-olds building a bunch of games, together, and now to see, we're older, but there's a whole new generation of people growing up playing these types of games, and we're also seeing a neat point in the game industry where games are becoming increasingly social experiences, right? The magic of Fortnite isn't just it's like a fun game with some unique elements to it. It's that people can play together in large social groups across all platforms. And so the way they play the game is as much social as it is a game experience. We find they spend an awful lot of time just sitting around in the lobby talking to each other and emoting and dancing, because it's really just friends chatting with each other. The gameplay is almost secondary to that for a lot of people.
Yeah, and in terms of you mentioned it there, the word cross-platform, how significant do you think that's going to be in the years to come, and the work that you're doing on the engine to make sure that that is relatively easy for people to do? Because it seems to be what the consumers want, right?
Yeah, I think that is going to be everything for the future of the game industry. The fact that people can play together with all of their friends across all platforms. Imagine the world of social networks if people on iOS couldn't talk to people on Android and the PC users were a different network again. The dynamics of the modern world would just break down in that environment. But that's been the story of gaming for the past 20 years. It's been bifurcated by platform and interoperability barriers. And now that those have come down, we've seen much, much higher levels of game engagement than we've ever seen before. And now Fortnite really started this trend recently. It's been much more widely adopted now. Dauntless shipped recently, and Epic Games Store, and Xbox, on PlayStation, seamless crossplay between all platforms. And I think players are coming to expect it. And these social groups are going to say no to games where only a few of the friends in a group can play together because the other platforms aren't a part of it.
It just makes your job a lot harder.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it means there's a whole new set of considerations for game developers. It seems like, I said like 15 years ago that there are at least 10 elements of a game that you have to get every one of them right. And if you mess up any one of these elements, the whole game fails, right? It's the audio, it's the visuals, it's the gameplay, it's the feel of the controls. It's a lot of these intangibles, but it seems like every generation we just add a few more. And now it's multi-platform, it's supporting mobile devices, it's having a great social experience. It's about not alienating any player that comes in. The most amazing thing is, the shooter genre of games has all been like 95%, guys. But Fortnite is a 35% female population. That's totally remarkable for a shooter. We see some games like Tencent's Honor of Kings is 50% female, but I think what we've done is we've built a game that has so few reasons to reject it. That it's okay for everybody, right? You're not like picking a bunch of male soldiers to play, right? You have a variety of characters you can play with, a soldier, a cute costume, or anything, male, female, any style you like, or you can play as a banana, and it's kind of universally acceptable.
You were the first game to have Keanu Reeves in it as well. It's quite big news this week, isn't it? And so obviously, this is an award that recognises a broad spectrum of the work that you guys do at Epic Games. How important is the mega grants to you? The work that you're trying to sort of help and give support to the rest of the industry. Why did you set that up, and what's the purpose of it?
Well, a few years ago we set up Unreal Dev Grants. It was a $5 million fund that would be given out with no strings attached to different projects using Unreal Engine or other tools to help foster projects that we thought had a chance of success but really needed some financial help. And that was a big success. And in the meantime, Fortnite achieved this amazing level of success, and so we grew that into a $100 million fund with Epic Mega Grants. And it goes beyond just the game industry now. It supports games, film and television, enterprise efforts, education, academic projects, and open source efforts like Linux. We've found so many projects really got over the hump of resources required in order to be successful, and so many of these games went on to great success in the last generation. I think we find there are a lot of ingredients you need to succeed with a game, but once you have a great team and a great idea, and you've gotten some momentum, often you just need some funding to get over the hump, and that's what we're aiming to solve.
You've mentioned this a few times already, so in terms of the work the Unreal Engine is doing in television and the film space, the fact that your mega grants are also sort of working outside of the gaming space as well. BAFTA is obviously a film and television organisation as well as recognising games. Do you see those sort of those worlds of entertainment sort of colliding a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. That's the core vision of Epic, right? Some people on the outside look at us and say, that's a funny company you got there. You're making games, you're licensing this 3D technology out, you have architects using your stuff, and then you have these online services. Like, what are you guys doing? You're all over the place. But what we're really doing is trying to build up a digital content ecosystem that spans tools for creators and platform for consumers to engage. And I think we're just in the early stages of this whole effort, but we've seen it coming for the last decade or so. And you just see little bits of it here and there. You realize what's coming together is something much bigger than any media that exists now. Like 3 years ago, we partnered with McLaren to build a photorealistic car, and it pushed us to implement anisotropic paint and realistic carbon fiber materials in the Unreal Engine, and we did a demo and proved that they could build a car configurator that way. But that car just showed up in Rocket League as a photorealistic McLaren car, and you're starting to see these little crossovers, like Marshmello, the digital musician, showed up in Fortnite to conduct a concert. Yeah. It was much bigger than any physical concert in history. It had 10.8 million simultaneous players in the concert. That's
a big number, isn't it? When you stand back and think about it, 10.8 million in one place at one time.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's bigger than anything in the real world. I think when you back up and look at this, you're realizing every company engaged in the real world somehow who's building a product is actually building a digital version of that product before they manufacture anything, whether it's a car or a building or some industrial machine or an oil tanker. And all of these digital assets are just used internally and then they're discarded. But I think the next step is for us to take, using real-time technology, Unreal Engine that's powering their 3D visualization, to start bringing all of these assets together and make them as much a part of the consumer experience as their internal development pipeline. Right? What if every car, before it released in the real world, it was available in games and online and experiences like Fortnite? What if you could go test not just something that looks like the real car, but actually simulates the car's physics in there? What if a major new work of architecture debuted in an online game and that anybody could play? I think what we're seeing is a lot of the elements of social networks are being kind of reinvented, but around real-time 3D. Social networks were about text and pictures and then videos, and it was all offline, asynchronous, and fairly impersonal, right? It's really easy to type up a text rant at somebody that you've never seen before, but with Fortnite, you're getting people together in real time, and they're having real conversations, and all of the characteristics of empathy you have with real-world interactions with humans are brought into Fortnite. So it ends up being a much more positive and welcoming experience to everyone, and one you primarily experience with people you actually know and not strangers. And so, I think as this medium expands, you're going to see, instead of General Motors having a Facebook page where they talk about their cars, they're just going to start putting them in these 3D experiences. And whether it's Fortnite or future media, I think all of these games are kind of converging on something that's like the metaverse from science fiction, where it's not just one company and their game. It's about everybody being able to add content, build their own environments, bring in their own objects, create their own behavior, and yet still interoperate together in a cohesive way. And I think that's kind of this future medium that we're just seeing the very beginnings of now.
Talking of the very beginnings of something, another sort of development in the world of Epic recently, of course, is the game store. How important is that to the company, the work that you've been putting into that?
Well, the Epic Game Store is the tip of an iceberg. But the problem that we're immediately trying to solve is that digital distributors, this started out as a really small business. Steam 15 years ago. But it's grown into a $100 billion a year annual revenue business. Stores take 30%, which is $30 billion a year. And for most games, where the game developer pays all of the cost of building the game, operating the servers, running a marketing campaign, the store actually makes more profit than the developer themselves. So this is an injustice, and we've really been trying to fix it by introducing a much more competitive revenue sharing model, 88-12 in favor of the developer. And that still enables us to operate the store at a profit, but we've been pushing that incredibly hard and using all of the techniques we feel are necessary to gain momentum. Mainly that's been giving away free games and getting exclusives on some major PC games.
Yeah.
That's a first for the PC platform. A lot of gamers really hate the idea of games that are exclusive to one store. They just want to buy everything on Steam, and they don't care if Valve takes 30%. But we feel we really have to restructure the way digital distribution works, and we have to start with PC. But the winds of change are blowing for the whole industry. Apple charging 30% and denying competing stores the ability to exist on their platform. Putting Spotify in an untenable position by taking 30% from them without taxing their own music business. All of these platforms are going to have to change, and I feel Epic's in a unique position to actually help affect that change.
So you see a future where everything people aren't operating in silos anymore. Then you see things sort of amalgamating and coming together.
Yeah, I think
that's going to be difficult for some companies, obviously, because they want to make more cash, right? So
That's right. Well, I think right now too many things are tied together in the game industry. You have a smartphone platform that's tied to a monopoly store, it's tied to a bunch of Apple services, and then on Xbox and PlayStation, you had console platforms that were walled garden communities where you couldn't talk to other platforms. A lot of those barriers are starting to come down now. What we'd like to see is every platform be completely interoperable with all other platforms. We'd like to see stores and platforms separated so that any store can exist on any platform. We'd like to see every social gaming ecosystem, Xbox Live or PSN or Epic or Steam, all be able to interoperate so that instead of only being limited to talking to your Steam or your Xbox friends, being able to connect to anybody on any platform. So.
And you think you're fairly confident that you can see that happening? Because there is more cross-platform play happening already, isn't there? Can you see that trend?
Yeah, a little bit more happens every month. If you look at it, the barriers are coming down. You're going to see more and more social communication across platform barriers. Now, Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, Apple, Google, they're all they've all lifted the restrictions on cross-communication and cross-purchasing. I think that's just the beginning. At some point, Apple's walled garden has to come down, and iOS users need the freedom to install apps on their phones. And
is that pace of change exciting for someone like you who's been in the business for so long and done so much already? Is that having that such a potentially profound change in the industry an exciting prospect or daunting?
Well, I'm really excited about it. I don't mind a good fight. But yeah, a lot of it has actually been a backside over the past 12 years where the industry has become more and more closed down and domineered by the big tech companies. 12 years ago, PC was completely open, every platform was completely open, and internet connectivity was really just taking off. And for a long time, the walled gardens have expanded and tightened their grip on things, and now we're finally seeing a relaxing of it. I'm very excited by it. I think it's going to be an enormously positive thing for the whole industry, but it's going to be a lot of fights. There's no doubt about it.
Looking at ahead then for the next sort of stage, Tim, I remember we had a conversation about VR when we met all those years ago. Where do you think, you were really convinced, I remember you were really passionately telling me that VR was going to be brilliant. Do you still believe in that?
Well, I think the future of our lives is going to be immersed in incredibly high-quality 3D graphics. For a while, we put our hopes in VR, but it turns out that the quality of the experience, basically the resolution and field of view and these other technical parameters of the thing, were just not good enough to bring in consumers and retain them. I think what you have there is the difference between like the Palm Pilot and the iPhone, and it really highlighted, the VR situation highlighted that we're still in the Palm Pilot stage. And like Palm Pilots were not unsuccessful, right? And VR is being used heavily in enterprise. Ford's design center, all the car designers are using VR to walk around models of their cars and tweak them before they're actually built. But it's just not good enough for consumers yet. I think it's most likely now that AR at some point is going to hit a critical mass and become the most pervasive platform before VR is. And it's not clear what the time frame is. Like Magic Leap and Microsoft with HoloLens 2 have some really amazing AR products, but they're still not there yet, right? They're still in the early adopter phase. They're the Palm Pilots. They're used by a lot of customers throughout industry, but they're not yet consumer platforms. And I think at some point they are going to hit a critical mass. And I have no doubt within 12 years, we are not going to be operating our lives on top of smartphones. We're going to be wearing glasses, like my goofy glasses here. When we put them on, we're going to have an 8K per eye, completely immersive computer graphics experience filling our whole field of view. And we'll seamlessly see a combination of that projected into our view with our normal view of the real world.
You've seen the Cyberpunk trailer, haven't you?
Yeah. It's coming, and this is going to be the best platform ever. It's just imagine like the experience if you could play a game in an IMAX theater all to yourself, but the AR experience that's coming is going to be better than the best IMAX experience that exists in the world today, and it's going to be a few $100s to buy one, and it's going to be sold in the billions of units in the future. And so that's our future, and it's a great future for everybody involved in digital entertainment because it means unlimitless opportunities to reach people with great experiences.
Now, Tim, you're a busy man. What have we taken you away from today? What should you be doing rather than coming, sitting, chatting with us?
Well, my job's an interesting one. Epic's a sizable business. I put a lot of effort into managing it, especially playing out our initiatives and the strategy behind it all. The store, the ecosystem. Like I'm not in any way the creative visionary behind Fortnite. There was an awesome creative team at Epic, and I just stand back and let them do their jobs. But I also try to dig in and spend some time programming and really understand what's happening at the software level, because I feel like so many of the tech companies, when their leaders lose sight of the nuts and bolts of the business, so they really start to go into this cycle of decline. And the rise and fall of major games and industries even is so rapid now that I feel like I really have to stay in touch with that. So I still program, and everybody says, "Tim, you shouldn't do that." But yeah, this is Epic's a unique business, right? We're not just a game maker, we're not just a technology maker. We have to put all of this together and show the world a view of the future that works.
Yeah, and it's part of that ecosystem, I suppose, that is why that you've been recognised by BAFTA. And so going to, back to the Unreal Engine, sort of looping back around to where we started, what's your, and these are difficult, these are the difficult questions now, Tim, okay?
Okay.
What's your favourite game that's ever been made on the Unreal Engine? I mean, I said I wasn't going to pull any punches at the start, so.
Well, let's see. I think we have to go to game hours played. I've put in over 1,000 hours in Fortnite. Maybe 200 into Unreal Tournament. I've played a lot of games, but I've never gotten immersed into anything like this. So That's just my personal experience. And I'm a terrible player. I have a KD ratio.
So am I, so is mine.
My KD ratio is 0.3, but the magic of Fortnite is that everybody has a chance. Like, I've played over 1,000 games, over 2,000 games now, and I've actually won 6. And I completely suck. So
that's 6 more than me, Tim, to be fair. Yeah.
But it's neat, right? And that's kind of the magic of Battle Royale, right? It's the best player doesn't always win, right? And if you look at the movies in the genre, going back to the 1999 movie from Japan called Battle Royale, up to Hunger Games and everything else, it's all about the drama of, the come from behind and the opportunities everybody has and the mistakes they make. And that's kind of, I think that's part of the magic of the genre.
Yeah, and because I suppose you've talked quite a lot about the sort of the social aspect of it as well. That's something you and the team especially, that they focus on. Yeah, and there's a lot of magic to that process. The creative team, Donald Mustard and others, have really tried to make the Fortnite world come alive. By it's not just a map; it evolves over time, and drama happens in the world from time to time, and these are big events for players to get together and participate in. And there's a lot of mystery to it. And if you look at the Fortnite community, you'll see often that they talk about what's happening in the game and that, they moved the construction trucks over here, they must be looking for something. And when they talk about they in the Fortnite world, they're not referring to Epic. Like, to them, we're just the bozos who can't keep the servers running reliably, right? They refers to this magical world of Fortnite that's bigger than us and is kind of immortal in the sense of things. And that's a really neat element of the whole entertainment industry, is we're creating worlds for people to experience and enjoy, and we're kind of the behind-the-scenes creators, and it's nice to be invisible. And of course, lots of people use your tools to create those worlds. You've seen the list of games we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You saw, them on stage. How does it make you feel when you see all that work that the people are using your tools to and the tools of the team, of course, to create?
It's really amazing. I guess we shouldn't overstate Epic's importance in this, right? Like, you see Leonardo painting the Sistine Chapel. We're like the dudes who created the paintbrushes. Like, whoa, yay us! But but it's like this funny inside baseball side of the industry. The technical sophistication required for it is quite extreme, and we're thrilled to have so many great partners doing so many amazing things, and especially to see so many scales of it. Right, there's at least 1,000-person team building a game using the Unreal Engine, and there's lots of one-person teams, and Astroneer was built by a 3-person team and sold over 1 million copies. It's just amazing to see the diversity of it all.
Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time. So we're just going to open the floor now for questions. We've got about 10 minutes for some questions. So what if you sort of put your hands up, anything you would like to ask Tim, then now is your chance. So we've got a gentleman just on the right over there. Yeah, I think that's you. That's the one.
Hello, Tim. Thank you. Fascinating to hear you talk. Thank you very much. You mentioned the metaverse earlier, which I'm sure is a reference to Snow Crash. As you look to the future and you're talking about VR and all this cool stuff, are there any other sort of fictional works that have inspired you to sort of go on and to do what you're doing so fantastically?
Yeah, that's funny. I think what we're really doing is independently recreating a lot of these findings that these sci-fi authors had. We're kind of stumbling onto the same results that they anticipated without realizing it. Like, I only read Snow Crash after Fortnite had launched. Started reading Diamond Age, but I realized, they're spoiling too much. I think we need to figure this out on our own. I think what sci-fi writers do is they anticipate future technology changes and anticipate the human consequences to them and try to build stories around that. But the funny thing about this fiction is a lot of it is really prescient, and a lot of it just doesn't work. And so, in trying to evolve Fortnite in this direction, we're doing a lot of experiments. Every week we release some new features and try things, and some of them work, some don't. But if you look at Snow Crash, the big problem they have there is they're going in and out of the metaverse, but to coordinate, they actually find payphones and call each other. And it's a real problem for them to actually coordinate that out of metaverse experience. And now we have smartphones everywhere we go. And so I think we can't rely too much on science fiction. And I think we're going to realize only after the fact what parts they were right about and what parts they were wrong about. Especially when you look at the human consequences of like social networks. People had expected, massive interconnected communications networks long, long ago, but they hadn't anticipated that they'd start to have all of these negative consequences too of hate and all the outrage mobs and all of the negative social interactions that arise from it. And I think these are all problems that we're going to have to dig through as we build an increasingly social experience of larger scale. I mean, Fortnite, the magic of it works because of its small groups. As you open up larger and larger, I think we're going to see a range of problems that we can't even begin to anticipate yet.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you for that question. So, the gentleman down here at the front.
So I actually have a really controversial question, which I'm not going to ask. But I left the games industry and went to the film and television side, and Unreal has been incredibly disruptive to it over the past couple of years as it's spread into that. How seriously do you take that side of the Unreal Engine? Is that like a fun little side part of it, or is that being equally developed with the games tools part of it in terms of how seriously as a business you take?
Yeah, we have this real pig-headedness to our approach to all these things. We refuse to recognize these are separate markets, right? We see people who want real-time tools for being able to visualize the integration of human with CG elements in real time and capture all of that footage and edit it. They call themselves movie makers, but game developers actually want the same exact thing. And so we have this view that everybody's requirements for this technology across all of these industries are actually converging on a common set of demands and requirements. That everybody's going to need real-time 3D scanning of people and objects and everything around you. That this is going to need to achieve complete photorealism in all sets. And it's going to need to seamlessly combine digital humans and real humans and CG elements. And so we put enormous amounts of efforts into supporting some pioneering projects. There's one here in Los Angeles that we are not allowed to talk about yet, where we're running Unreal as a virtual production tool on a major, major set for a very complex production. And we've had a lot of the best and brightest engineers at Epic working on this project to make it a reality. But the customer for that isn't just this one studio. It's everybody who produces real-time digital content of any sort. And as soon as we make that more widely available, game developers are adopting it, and everybody else is as well. And so we really see all of these different industries kind of converging into becoming a digital content industry, which produces digital content for lots of different reasons, some intrinsic, some extrinsic, but we really are doing the same thing. And so Epic's putting huge investment in it, and we're working with a lot of enterprise partners, a lot of game development partners, but ultimately it's very remarkable how much they all are converging on needing the same stuff.
Thank you, Tim. Any further questions? Oh, yeah, lovely.
Hi. So less than 12 months ago, NVIDIA released their RTX cards for consumer-grade ray tracing. It's basically minimal at the moment, but it seems like their goal is to eventually have it so that you can use ray tracing for everything. Considering that there's a fair bit of work for developers for actually using in their games, do you see that as sort of becoming the new age of computer graphics, or do you see it going the way of 3D TVs?
So there's a question about computer graphics that I'm not going to lie went a little bit over my head. So, what is it? Ray tracing. Thank you. Sorry, got it. There we are. Bingo. So, have a go with that, Tim. What have you got for me? I'll see you in about 30 seconds. No.
I think ray tracing is going to be the final piece of technology that gets us from where we are to total photorealism. And so right now we're adopting it on high-end PCs, but yeah, you're going to see it on a much wider range of devices coming to mobile platforms in a few years. I think the time from something appearing at the ultra high end of the computer graphics market to it being completely ubiquitous in the hands of billions of users is getting down to just a few years. And so it's coming for real, and I think we're going to see more and more games take real advantage of that. Especially, I think a lot of the really hard problems of graphics, like being able to do completely real-time lighting and shadowing, real-time radiosity, is finally going to be solved with this ray tracing hardware acceleration. as well as a lot of the really subtle problems of digital humans and shadows and just the interplay of light and objects at a very fine scale. So I think we are getting very close, and we will see over the next decade complete photorealism and at least everything other than synthesized humans, right? Because everything comes down to just brute force solving the equations of physics, except for simulating humans. We have no idea how humans work.
That's what I would have said as well. So, great. Does that make sense? All right.
What's your feeling right now being this close to a Welshman?
Yeah, how are you feeling? How are you feeling about being this close to a Welshman? Well, I was just telling Tim actually that you need to visit, don't you? Next time you're in the UK, you need to go and see Wales.
Can you speak a little bit of Welsh? Because it's
Well, wrth
really
gwrs, so fi nhw yw Steffan, a dwi yma yn Los Angeles, yn America, yn siarad gyda ti, Tim, yn trafod gemau fideo gyda llawn dwrn o bobl yma sydd wedi dod o bell ffordd i glywed ti'n siarad. Next, well, thank you. She's the oldest language in Europe, Welsh. Well, not you to speak about Welsh, we're going to speak about you, Tim. Right, I've got time for one more question. But if you want me to bore you about the Welsh language later, more than find me at the bar. Anybody else? One more question for Tim. Yeah, last question, this gentleman here.
What's next?
Great question. For anybody who didn't hear that, what's next, Tim?
What's next?
Other than trying to get the BAFTA on the plane, which we discovered is a bit of a tricky issue, apparently.
It looks like it might be capable of killing somebody, but yes. Yeah, we've started a lot of things at Epic. We've been building these online services, more and more social features in Fortnite, and Fortnite Creative Mode, where people can build their own content. And I think we've started like 10 different projects in parallel with this view that they're all going to come together in the future, and we're going to see a future world of games where users are the primary creators of content, right? Us, maybe 100,000 or a million game developers in the industry are completely dwarfed by hundreds of millions of users expanding on our worlds, as we're just kind of the bozos who built the central components of the games, right? Bringing that into reality is going to be a really, really exciting project. You see some leading edge aspects of it in Minecraft or Fortnite or Roblox, but I think the ultimate version of that is far more cool than anything that exists now, and it's quite an engineering effort to make that work. So I think that's going to consume the next decade of our efforts, at least.
Well, Tim, thank you very much for your time. I'm just going to invite Joe back up onto the stage and give you something very special. Thank you very much for your time, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steffan. And yes, it remains just for me to have the great honour on behalf of BAFTA to present Epic Games with this very special BAFTA award. Congratulations, Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much. Epic Games. That's quite an honor. It's a great honor. I'm just here as Epic spokesperson, right? Especially the work that we've done in the area of creativity and serving the needs of the film industry and game developers is the work of hundreds of really world-class people all around the world contributing to it. And the team has worked so hard to make these things a reality, and it's a great honor to be recognized for it. And I hope this is just the beginning of the quest, right? We're trying to recreate a whole new world around digital entertainment, and I think we're just at the beginning of it still. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.